We often speak of sex as performance, as a skill to be mastered, a list to check off. But real eroticism lives in the nuance. The tension between what's spoken and what's secret. And one of those well-guarded secrets, many women crave roughness, not in the sense of violence, but in the profound, electrifying experience of being claimed. We live in a world where women are expected to stay composed, to lead, to hold it all together. But in the realm of intimacy, she doesn't want to hold it together. She wants to fall apart beautifully, consensually, intensely. She wants to feel the walls of her control collapse under the weight of your desire for her. Let's start with the grip. The way a hand can command her hip, hold her throat, pin her wrists, not to overpower, but to center her. This isn't about domination. It's about presence. It tells her, I see you, I want you, I'm not going anywhere. That kind of grasp isn't a gesture of control, but of deep attention. And attention is the most erotic currency we have. Next, there's the shove. Against a wall, into a bed, onto the counter. It's not about force. It's about momentum. She doesn't want to be asked with words. She wants to be asked with action. When you press her against something solid, you give her permission to let go. And when you do it with trust, her body answers with surrender. Biting. Not playful nibbling, but teeth with intent on her shoulder, her neck, the back of her thigh. It says you're too much to contain. There's something primal in knowing your body awakens that kind of urgency, that kind of hunger. It's not just sex anymore. It's a claim, and some part of her, especially the part that never gets to let the animal out, aches to be devoured. Hair pulling, not yanking, not careless, but a firm grasp at the roots that pulls her head back and says, "Look at me." It's control and reverence in a single movement. Because in that moment, she isn't someone's boss or daughter or planner of all things. She's simply herself undone. And finally, the whisper that isn't soft, the growl at her ear, the filth that leaves your mouth and makes her lose her mind. Words that tell her, "You're mine right now." That voice, deep and rough, doesn't just talk dirty. It speaks to a part of her most men never reach, the part that wants to be wanted so badly she doesn't have to hold back anymore. But hear this. Roughness without care is trauma waiting to happen. What she craves is intensity with containment. Chaos with clarity. Fire, yes, but held in a fireplace, not a wildfire. The roughness she desires is not about hurting her. It's about giving her the freedom to not be careful anymore. She doesn't want to be safe in the way the world makes her safe. She wants to be safe enough to fall apart in your hands. When she trusts you enough to crave the roughness, it means she's inviting you to meet her where the wild things are. Don't take that lightly. And don't just give her pleasure. Give her the experience of being seen, broken open, and still deeply respected. That's the roughness she secretly dreams of. And when you learn to give it fully, honestly, consensually, she'll never forget how you made her feel. Desire at its core is a paradox. It doesn't drive in perfect safety, nor in uncontrolled chaos. It lives in the sweet tension between the two. The idea of safe danger is not about contradiction, it's about erotic truth. What many women secretly crave in bed, especially when it comes to rough sex, is not to be harmed or violated. It's to feel the full intensity of their partner's presence in a space where they can trust that intensity. It's the dance between dominance and surrender, but only when the boundaries are clear and the emotional safety is deeply embedded. This craving isn't about pain for pain's sake. It's about being able to let go in a context where everything is mutually agreed upon, emotionally contained, and guided by a kind of intelligence that can read the room, her body, and her reactions. In that state of trust, roughness becomes less about physical acts and more about symbolic gestures. A hand pressed against her back, a firm grip on her jaw, a sudden pin against the wall. These aren't inherently threatening. When done within the container of trust, they become ways of saying, "I want you so much, I can't hold back." That is the safe danger. The body interprets it as risk, and yet the soul knows its health. This creates a charged atmosphere where desire flourishes, where permission to be uninhibited emerges. The craving isn't for a partner who loses control, but for one who can hold control while playing at the edges. Because it's at those edges, between wildness and care, between force and tenderness, that the deepest erotic energies are awakened. For many women, daily life is lived in a state of control, They manage, they plan, they navigate expectations. In sex, especially rough sex, there is a rare and powerful invitation to surrender control, but only if they know they're being cared for beneath the intensity. That's where emotional intelligence meets physicality. A rough grip with no attunement is nothing but force. But when it's given with care, timing, and the capacity to read subtle shifts in her breathing or her eyes, it becomes a powerful act of connection. When a woman says she wants it rough, she's not always saying she wants to be thrown around. Often she's saying she wants to feel the primal heat of being deeply wanted. She wants the tension, the breathlessness, the moment where she is no longer the one holding everything together. She wants to be the storm, not the anchor. She wants her partner to step into their power, not to take something from her, but to meet her intensity with their own. The roughness she craves is rooted in clarity, not confusion. In mutual consent, not assumptions. And that's what makes it erotic. Not just the move, but the meaning behind it. Not just the force, but the fact that it's grounded in mutual trust and burning desire. The roughness that women often secretly crave is not about random aggression or unchecked force. It's about the depth of presence. When a man touches her roughly, when he holds her down or grips her body with intensity, it only becomes erotic if it comes with full attuned attention. True roughness, the kind that makes her tremble in anticipation rather than recoil in discomfort, is steeped in awareness. It's not the strength of the grip that matters most, but the intention behind it. A man who is fully present in his body and hers, who watches her breath, hears her moans shift in tone, senses her tension or release. He becomes the kind of lover that can take her to the edge and keep her safe there. His roughness is not absent-minded or fueled by ego. It's fueled by connection. When a woman asks for rough sex or responds passionately to being dominated, what she's often seeking is the experience of being fully seen and fully felt. She wants to know that he's not just going through the motions, not just performing what he thinks she wants. She wants him to be immersed in her, paying attention to the details that most men ignore. She wants to feel the certainty in his touch, the deliberateness in his movements, the way he uses his body, not just to take, but to offer an experience of raw, wild, mutual immersion. That's why rough sex without presence falls flat or even becomes traumatic. Without that presence, it can feel disconnected, mechanical, or disrespectful. With presence, even the roughest act becomes an extension of intimacy, an unspoken conversation that bypasses words and speaks through flesh. Many women crave that experience of being completely overwhelmed, but not by someone who's detached or aggressive. They want to be overtaken by someone who is completely there moment by moment, adjusting, listening, reacting. Presence is what turns a hand on her throat from something threatening into something thrilling. It's what makes being pinned down feel like an invitation rather than a restraint. Because she knows that even in the heat of that roughness, even in the middle of her moans and struggles, he is still right there with her, making sure she's okay, reading her signals, responding to her needs without ever having to interrupt the flow. That's the kind of roughness that leaves her breathless, not just from the act, but from how deeply she was felt and known. The craving for roughness is not a desire to be harmed. It's a desire to be claimed with consciousness. It's the primal ache to be taken, but only by someone who is tuned in enough to know exactly how far to go. When a man can bring that level of embodied awareness to his roughness, he becomes more than a lover. He becomes a conductor of desire, turning every grip, every push, every growl into a language she understands in her bone. It's not about what he does. It's about how fully he does it and how clearly she can feel that he hasn't disappeared. Rough sex is often misunderstood as purely physical. But for many women, the real craving lies in the psychological landscape. It opens up. It's not just about being pushed, pulled, or restrained. It's about the internal shift that happens when control is surrendered to someone else. When a deeper, more instinctual part of the self is given permission to take over. The body plays a role. Yes, but it is the mind that makes the experience intoxicating. The real desire is to be overtaken, not only in motion, but in intention, to feel a hunger so strong from the other person that it breaks through the layers of politeness, inhibition, and restraint. In those moments, it's not the act that seduces, it's the message it sends. I want you so much I can't stop myself. That is what makes her feel ravished, not just physically, but mentally. Usually, it's the relinquishing of thought, and stepping into a world where her only job is to feel, to receive, to surrender. Psychological surrender is powerful because it gives women access to something often denied in their daily lives. The craving for rough sex is in many ways a craving for release, from control, from decision-making, from perfection. When a woman is allowed to surrender in a sexual space, especially in a rough one, it touches something beyond the skin. It touches the mind's need to be undone. But that undoing only feels safe and pleasurable when it is surrounded by trust. The intensity becomes desirable because it is anchored in the emotional connection she feels with her partner. It's not about humiliation. It's about being so desired that she can drop every mask she wears outside the bedroom. She can fall apart, cry out, be messy, uninhibited, and still be adored. That's not physical force. It's emotional force meeting erotic permission. Rough sex at its most powerful isn't about doing something to her. It's about pulling something out of her. That's why the psychological element is so central. A whispered command, a growled sentence in her ear. The pressure of dominance that comes not with yelling, but with certainty. These affect her more deeply than any slap or thrust because they enter her mind, her imagination, her internal world. A partner who understands this doesn't just act rough. He makes her feel like he's temporarily stepped into a role that holds her with strength and clarity, so she doesn't have to think or decide. She only has to feel. What women crave in these moments isn't brutality. It's that erotic blend of being overpowered by desire, not violence. It's the mental shift from having to do to being able to just be. When rough sex speaks to the psyche, rather than just the skin, it becomes a tool for deeper erotic expression. It becomes about trust, about giving up control in a world that demands it constantly, and about entering a state where she is not just touched, but undone in the most delicious, consensual way possible. It's about attachment of the body in so untouched dimensions to but done in the most delicious, consensual way possible. In everyday life, many women are conditioned to carry the weight of control. They organize schedules, manage emotions, uphold responsibilities, and constantly navigate the expectations placed on them. There's an unspoken pressure to be composed, agreeable, and self-contained. Over time, this expectation to hold everything together can create an inner tension that builds silently. In sex, especially in a deeply connected and consensual space, roughness offers a rare and powerful release. It becomes a space where she no longer needs to direct or perform. She can let go, not just physically, but emotionally. This surrender isn't a sign of weakness. It's a craving for freedom, for a moment where nothing needs to be managed and every decision is taken from her hands in the most electrifying, trusted way. When a woman is given the space to surrender, it allows her to access a version of herself that is often suppressed. In those rough moments when she is pinned, guided, or commanded by a partner who knows her, she gets to drop the persona. She is not required to be pleasing, composed, or strategic. She can moan uncontrollably, squirm without shame, beg without ego. It's not about degradation. It's about liberation. The experience becomes a kind of erotic exhale, a primal release of the restraint she holds in every other part of her life. In the roughness, she finds the safety to be messy, to be loud, to be fully felt and fully expressed. That is why this kind of sex touches something deeper than just sensation. It taps into emotional layers that are rarely accessed. This kind of surrender can only happen in a container of deep trust. The roughness she desires is not random or careless. It's intentional, attuned, and based on mutual understanding. Her partner must know her boundaries, respect her signals, and stay deeply connected even in the intensity. It is precisely because she feels safe with him that she can let go of the fear of being judged or misunderstood. She's not performing roughness for him. She's stepping into it with him, co-creating an experience where she's allowed to release all the tightness she usually holds. In that moment, being shoved down onto the bed or having her hair pulled becomes more than a physical act. It becomes a transfer of control that she is craving, not because she lacks power, but because she needs a break from wielding it. There's a deep eroticism in being told what to do when the voice comes from someone who knows her, wants her, and holds her with care. She wants to be told to open her mouth, to turn around, to take it because in those commands, she feels the certainty she's often denied in her day-to-day life. Rough sex becomes not just a physical outlet, but an emotional sanctuary. in the force of his grip and the weight of his body. She doesn't feel dominated, she feels released. Released from pressure, from planning, from performance. It's a moment of pure being, of full-body surrender, where she gets to feel wildly wanted, deeply seen, and utterly free. Tension is the lifeblood of eroticism. It's the space between desire and fulfillment, the slow burn before the climax, the stretch between resistance and release. What women often crave in rough sex is not a constant aggressive pace, but a rhythm of contrasts, a balance between force and softness, restraint and surrender. The grip on her hips, the hand tightening around her neck, the press of his body pinning hers to a surface. These aren't just physical moves. They are techniques of building erotic tension. Each movement communicates a message. I want you. I control this moment. You're not going anywhere. But for this to be pleasurable, the tension must build with precision. Rough sex is not about rushing to the end. It's about holding her in that charged space where anticipation and sensation collide. The craving for these rough moments is rooted in the psychological tension they create. A hand sliding slowly up her inner thigh, stopping just before the place she wants it most. The push against the wall that says stay here, even if no words are spoken. The moment his grip tightens just enough to make her catch her breath, each of these actions plays with her boundaries, but never crosses them without permission. That's what makes them so powerful. She knows deep in her body that he is in control, but only because she has allowed it. That agreement, whether spoken before or silently understood, is what gives her the freedom to fully feel every moment of tension without fear. She can melt into the buildup because she trusts that the crescendo will be worth it. This tension doesn't live in brute strength. It lives in the energy of dominance. The silent commands issued through body language, eye contact. The way he moves her without asking, but with complete awareness. It's in the pause before a rough thrust, the lingering breath at her ear, the subtle delay that makes her beg without even realizing it. These aren't random pauses. They are the mastery of rhythm. She doesn't want it all at once. She wants it in waves. She wants to be teased, held, restrained, and then undone. It's the rhythm of anticipation, not just impact, that drives her wild. When tension is crafted with care, the release becomes explosive. That moment when he finally thrusts after holding her still. When he finally pulls her hair after keeping his hands gentle. When he finally growls after moments of silence. It's the release her body has been aching for. And because the buildup was deliberate, the payoff is not just physical, it's emotional, even spiritual. Tells her, you are worth the wait. I know how to make you unravel. I've studied your body, and I want to break it open with pleasure. The craving for rough sex for many women is deeply tied to this kind of play. It's not about pain or punishment. It's about the artistry of building erotic pressure until it becomes unbearable, and then offering her the sweet, overwhelming gift of release. Not once, but over and over again. The kind of rough sex women secretly crave cannot exist without communication, even if it appears wordless in the moment. The most intense, mind-altering sexual experiences are not born from spontaneity alone. They are built on a foundation of consent, trust, and clarity. Many people assume that talking about sex, especially something as charged and taboo as rough play, will kill the mood. But in truth, it's the opposite. Communication is what gives rough sex. It's electricity. It's what turns risky into safe, what transforms intensity into connection. Without it, roughness can become guesswork. And guesswork has no place where bodies and minds are being exposed so deeply. Women who desire roughness want to feel free, not just physically, but psychologically. They want to be able to lose control, scream, cry, moan without hesitation. That kind of surrender can only happen when they know without a doubt that their partner is not only aware of their boundaries, but is actively attuned to them. This doesn't always mean having a checklist or robotic dialogue. Sometimes it's as simple as an intimate conversation beforehand where she gets to say, I want you to pull my hair, or I love it when you pin me down. Those admissions spoken aloud become permissions. They give the partner a roadmap to her desires and in turn give her the mental freedom to let go once things begin. During the act itself, communication often becomes nonverbal, a shift in breath, the tightening of a muscle, a sudden stillness. These are signals. A conscious lover knows how to read them, how to ask with a glance, how to check in with a whisper that doesn't break the moment. You okay? can be the sexiest phrase when whispered in the middle of a rough grip or an intense thrust because it says, "I'm with you, not just doing something to you." That reassurance makes her body relax even deeper into surrender because she knows she's being held not just physically, but emotionally. Post-sex communication is equally vital. When rough sex is done right, it can feel intense, vulnerable, even disorienting. Aftercare, stroking her back, whispering affirmations, holding her close becomes a continuation of that communication. It tells her she is safe, valued, and respected, that the roughness wasn't about power or performance, but about shared experience and deep desire. It helps her integrate the intensity, and it builds even more trust for next time. The roughness women crave is not chaotic. It is choreographed in real time, with trust as its rhythm and consent as its compass. It may look raw and wild from the outside, but underneath it is structure, care, and intentionality. Without communication, rough sex becomes a gamble. With it, it becomes art. The more openly partners can speak about their wants, needs, and limits, the more erotic charge they bring to the bedroom. Because when she knows she